Today I'm working on building a sight tape for my hunting bow. And something that I do a little bit differently when between sighting in my hunting bow and getting a sight tape for my target bow is, with my target bow I typically like to aim at a feeder face or whatever the target is that I'm going to be aiming at with the bow. With a hunting bow, I make a custom target like this. So the orange is just orange duct tape. Then there's blue masking tape that's about 2/3 of an inch wide, and then in the middle of that there is a 1/4 inch grouting tape. Now I use Precision Cut Archery. It's probably the most accurate sight tape software that I found, and to make a tape with that software you require 3 marks. Unlike most other software where it does the math based off of 2, that you actually input 3 marks into the software, and the more accurate you get, the more accurate your tape will be. So typically I like to get my closest mark at 30 or 40 yards. Then I'd like to shoot one at about 70, and then I want to get about a 100-yard mark. So if I'm shooting at 30 yards, I want my arrows to be touching this 1/4 inch tape right here. If I'm shooting at 70, I would like to I definitely want to be within the width of the duct tape, but I'd like it to touch at least the blue tape. Now typically I won't hit every arrow on the tape, but if they trend to be below the center line, all of them, I'll make a sight adjustment. Or if they trend above the line, but if I shoot slightly high, slightly low, slightly high, slightly low, and it averages out to be close to the middle, that's kind of what I would accept as a sight mark. And then at 100 yards, ideally I want to hit the duct tape. But again, if I'm slightly high, slightly low, and it averages out to be within the width of the duct tape, I'll accept that mark. It's kind of a long process. It takes me a few hours to really dial it in and be happy with my marks. Once I do all of this, I'll input all of that information into the software, get a sight tape, and then I'll just go shoot at random distances and verify my tape. And if I hit at that point, then I'll call it good. So I'm at my 30-yard mark now. Now I've got some masking tape on my sight so I can make marks, but I have a sight tape on here that was spot on, but then I changed my cables and I reserved my center serving here. So now I need to dial it back in, and the bow is now at roughly 84 pounds. Now I can untwist the cables a little bit to get it closer to 80 pounds to spec, but I decided to leave it as is. So most factory bows, or bows from the factory, if you bury the bolts, they'll be about 2 pounds above what the maximum stated weight is. So a 70-pound bow, bolts buried, is probably 72 pounds. 80-pound bow, bolts buried, probably 82 pounds. So I decided to leave mine at 84. So all my friends that shoots an 80-pound bow, I can tell them I'm 2 pounds better than them. Okay, I think I'm close, but the target's getting a little bit crowded right now, so I'm going to go pull my arrows, start with a clean target, and fine-tune it. So I just shot a bunch of arrows, made some sight adjustments, and my last couple of arrows was this one right here that's at the top of the blue line. Then my last shot was this one that's kind of touching the bottom of the beige 1/4 inch line. So this is a mark I can live with, but now what I want to do is just pull all of these because it's getting too crowded for me to see what's happening. And then I'm going to shoot again, and if I can keep them in the blue and touching the beige line, I'll accept that and move on to the next mark. that broke low and it also hit low. So I know to kind of discard that arrow, that result, redo. So this is at 30 yards. This shot felt like it broke good and it's in the middle of the line. This one felt like it broke good. It's touching the top of it, slightly high of center, but I mean at 30, whatever, I can't aim that precise, so I'll accept that. This shot felt like it broke a little low, and it is slightly low. It's about 30 yards. That's probably about a ½ inch or so that it's lower than the center of the line, which is still acceptable. But these two I know felt really good when they broke. So for 30 yards, this is good. I'm gonna move back to 70 now to get another sight mark. So on my sight, I put some masking tape. So with a Sharpie, I'm just gonna go around the spin, get really tight, and around the spin, get super tight, because the idea is to get a point that is as well defined as I possibly can, because later on I'm gonna have to go and measure all of these with a caliper, and the more defined the point is, the more accurate my measurement will be and the more accurate my sight tape will be. So that's my 30-yard mark. And now, just for safety's sake or precaution, whatever you want to call it, so I don't screw this up, I'm going to take that sight stopper, or whatever you would call that, move it down so I cannot, when I maximize the sight's upward movement, it's at 30 yards. So later, once I've made a tape, if I move this, I can always find my 30-yard position again, so that I can easily make sure that when I stick the tape on here, it's going to be in the right spot. So now I'm at 70. Let's see, luckily it's a big bale, so my odds of missing is not that great. So one thing that you can do when you're trying to do sight marks and you're really not sure of where your longer range mark is, just step back 5 or 10 yards at a time and get yourself close, so that way at longer distance you know you're not missing your target completely and maybe losing an arrow. A bigger target definitely makes this job easier. Generally speaking, you want to shoot a group, whether it's a horizontal group or whatever you want. You want to see how the arrows group before you start making adjustments to your sight, to make sure that it being slightly off isn't you, but it's actually a sight movement that's required. So as you can see, these arrows are kind of hitting a little bit all over the place, too much to make any decision off of this. My first arrow was low. I made an adjustment, made some weak shots. Once I got it close, I didn't really adjust the sight much. So some of these, I mean, these two are really good. My last 2 shots was this one and one of these two. So the mark is close, but I'm also getting a little bit fatigued. So I'm making weak shots. So what I'm going to do is pull these arrows, have a drink of water, take a break for a few minutes, and then redo and see if I can dial this to where I get a pretty consistent group in this line. So side note, when I'm doing sight tapes, I try to shoot at just a horizontal line, so there's less kind of for my mind to keep track of. I'm not trying to center it on here. I'm just trying to hit this line, and then once I have a mark at 70 yards plus, I'll start aiming at the middle and then just see if I can group it in here. Now granted, some of the expectations might be unrealistic. If I'm trying to group like this, I mean, this is a feed at 80 centimeter target, that's, I mean, a 122 centimeter target, that would be a smaller group at 100 than what a 10 ring on this target would be. So You have to be realistic as well, but I want to see kind of a trend close to the line. And I always use this as my frame of reference. If everything is slightly low, make an adjustment. Again, if it's slightly high, slightly low, you're probably good. So just work with it from there. So that last shot felt like it broke good, but it hit way low. Much lower than what the others hit. So I'm going to throw another one down there before I make an adjustment, and just make sure that it is a sight adjustment needed and not a archer's adjustment needed. So that shot was higher than the previous one by quite a bit, but it is slightly low. So I'm going to make a slight sight adjustment. Okay, so this was my first shot at 70, and I felt it broke good, but it definitely hit lower than what I expected it to do. Without making any sight adjustment, I shot this arrow, broke good, hit slightly low, and I made a slight sight adjustment off of this, and then I shot 3 shots. One of these felt like it broke a little bit high, but it still hit the line. So 3 on the line. I'm going to call this sight mark good. But I am going to put a little mark on this arrow. This is arrow number 14. Just with my Sharpie, I'm going to just put a little star on the back of the vein. Because this one, maybe I did something weird that I wasn't aware of. But it did feel like the shot should have hit closer to this one. So if this one continues to hit low, I'll break down the whole arrow, remove all the components, refletch it, reglue everything. See if I can get it to hit with the others. For 70, that is what I'm looking for. Okay, so now I'm at 100. This will get interesting. That was low. Not the best shot. That shot was a little weak, but it's pretty low. Stay hydrated, kids. Ooh, low. Shooting at 100 yards, this is how everything turned out. The lowest arrow, I shot arrow 14 again, the one that hit low last time. And it is the lowest out of the lot. I'll do it again just to see, but I'm probably gonna go break this arrow down at home and then rebuild it and see if I can get it to group with the others. Now, I knew I pulled some of the shots to the right, and I know there was one that I pulled to the left, but these 4 right here, if you just lower everything, it's in the width of the tape. But that being said, if I have to lower it, I need to make a sight adjustment. But let's take the lowest arrow to the highest arrow. That is 4 1/4 inches. The 10 ring over here is 4 3/4 inches. So my group kind of spread high to low is within the 10 ring on a 122 centimeter face at 100 yards. So really I should be happy with that. But being this far away from the line is not great for my OCD. So I'm gonna shoot a few more arrows, just really take my time, take a bit of a rest before I do that, take more time in between each arrow so I can get a rest. Let's see, I'll do, let's say 6 arrows over, how many arrows do I have? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I've got 11 arrows. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot 5 over here, and then I'm going to do 6 over here, and just kind of see how they group and if I can live with the result. All of these shots felt relatively decent. One high, but they all felt decent, but they're trending a little bit low. But good group overall. On this side, my last 2 shots, I was definitely getting a little bit fatigued. This shot felt like absolute hot garbage. So I'm not even counting this for a sight adjustment. Obviously in competition, if you screw up, you screw up. But I don't want to factor this shot in when it comes to making a sight adjustment. This shot, I think, was my last arrow, if I recall, and it did feel like it broke high. Now these shots right here, I mean, they're a little bit off to the side, and understandable, there's a slight breeze. They all felt like they broke decent, but there is a slight breeze that might be pushing it. And again, I'm not too worried about my windage, my left to right. What I'm really concerned about is height-wise, and the 4 shots that felt decent are both within the width of an X. So that's low, this is within the width of an X. So one thing that I do find is, maybe because I've shot this type of target so much, it is much easier for my brain to kind of put the pin in the middle of a circle than what it is to put it on a line. So what I'm gonna do is pretty much redo what I just did. Take a few more shots, because of these right here and the height that they hit, I don't know that I want to make a sight adjustment off of those being low. I'm just going to repeat this and take a little bit more time, concentrate a little bit more, and see how it turns out. Okay, so put the bow on the drawboard. Now, to build a sight tape, there's a few measurements you're going to need. One is what your actual draw length is. Now, I don't know how important that is for the software, but it is one of the measurements you can put in, so get that accurate. And the way the standard draw length is measured is if you measure from the throat of the grip to your knock point here on the string, not the end of the D loop, but on the string where the arrow knocks, measure that plus 1 3/4 inches. That is your draw length, but that is the standard draw length measurement. The other thing is you want to know what your draw weight is. And now the other two important, very important for this exercise measurements is the distance from your peep to your pin. So measure that, and in my case that seems to be 29 1/4 inches. So peep to pin, 29 1/4 inch. The other measurement that is super important is your peep height at full draw. So you measure the center of your peep to the center of your arrow. Now there's an easy way to measure this, or a more accurate way of measuring this, that I got from a video done by Tyler Heritage. And I think he got it from Chuck Cooley. But this is probably the most accurate way that I know of doing this. So you want to use a caliper. The first measurement you want to get is the bottom of your peep to the top of your arrow. So in this case, it is the devil's number, 3.666. The next measurement you want to get is the diameter of your peep, the diameter of your arrow. Now, if your peep lines up with your where your wrap is, if you do use a wrap, that's where I would measure the diameter. Then you take half the diameter of your peep, half the diameter of your arrow, and add that to the distance that you measured between the bottom of your peep and the top of your arrow, and that should give you the most accurate measurement for the middle of the peep to the middle of the arrow. So the next measurements you're going to want to get is the distance between your closest mark and your second mark, and then the distance between your closest mark and your furthest mark. Those are the two numbers you're going to input to get a sight tape. I never use the metal sight tape that comes with a bow or a factory tape for the tape itself, because I find the marks are just not on, and that's kind of why I'm going through this process. But one thing that I really like about sights that have metal tapes is the ability to take it off, and that makes this job significantly easier. So now I'm going to measure the distance between my 30-yard mark and my 70-yard mark. And now 30 to 100 is the next point I'm measuring. .3085. Now I am in Precision Cut Archery. I'm going to go to my hunting bow and edit a few things. So since the last time I used the bow, I've changed a few things. I changed the cables, I redid the center serving, so all my measurements have changed a little bit. So the peep height I measured at 3.9975. Now, if my marks or with bow speed calculation is a little bit off, I will go back to these measurements and see if they're off. Then I've updated that. My sight radius, peep height's updated. Now, for my sight in marks, I'm using 3 marks. The closest is going to be 30, 70, and 100. And I'm selecting 3 sight marks. You can do downrange speed, which is pretty cool with if you have access to the Doppler system. I forget what it's called. I'm just going to put in 3 marks because that's what I have at my disposal. So the first measurement, the difference between mark 1 and mark 2, so 30 and 70, I measured that at 0.695. Now, if I messed up a measurement in here somewhere, it's probably going to spit it back out at me and tell me it's nonsensical, in which case I will go and remeasure. The between 30 and 100 was 1.03085. Now let's see, updated successfully. Now if I exit out of here, it should give me the calculated, oops, this I know was done at 700 feet altitude. So update sighting. If I exit out of here, it's going to give me my measured speed. Now, last time I shot my bow through a chronograph, it was about 200, I think it was 291. So, happy dogs. It was 291. Since then, the poundage have gone up a little bit. It's gone up a few pounds, but I've also added some weight to the back of the arrow because I went back to a pin bushing. So if I know that's the ballpark of my speed. If it calculates to be way off, 292.4. Okay, that's close enough that I am going to go ahead and use these sight marks. Now when you go to make a sight tape, this is where it gets pretty cool. Now I have the option of customizing my sight tape. Align to the left, and what I did is I actually measured the metal tape that goes on the Excel site, and I'm going to put in those dimensions so I can just stick the stickers to the metal tape. So length would be 2.32, width would be 1/4 inch, top margin, I don't need a top margin, and then remove, I don't need to label the top mark, remove first and third digit. That looks nice and clean. Let's see. See if I can do center. There we go. Text size a little bit smaller. And line width. I think we're good with that. Line weight, line width. Can do that a little bit smaller. To 50 over here. And then There, should be able to see that pretty good. So it looks like my tape will go to 137 yards. Now I'm going to print this on sticker paper, and I can put this sticker on top of the metal side tape, and we should be good. Okay, so now I'm going to cut out the side tape and put it on top of one of the metal XL tapes. And now this tape is going to go on top of the metal tape. Now the next thing that I do is, just for kind of added peace of mind, I put some tape, clear tape, over that tape to protect it. That way, in the wind and the rain and the whatever might come my way, I know the side tape's not gonna come off. Now this does add a little bit of width to the tape because of how it wraps around, which means that I might need to force it into the groove on the side that this is supposed to fit into. And this is a screw that is very easy to lose, but I did find them on Amazon. They're about $9 for a bag of 25 of them. So I can lose a few if I need to. So now I think my my pins are in there on 40 and 60, which is where they need to be, which co-witnesses with the center pin and the bottom pin. Last time I checked my bow, this was before I made all of these changes, but my bottom stop is to where I had vein clearance to, so 106 right now. I need to go double check that. 106 with my middle pin and down to 131 with my bottom pin, which is pretty good. But yeah, I'll double check that. The next thing that I need to go do is I need to go, one, verify my tapes on by just shooting at various distances, from 15 through 120, and if it hits good enough, I'll call that good. And then the last thing that I need to do is make sure that my pins, when I'm at the top position, my pins 20 through 60 are on. I kind of sweat the small stuff when it comes to accuracy and pins and whatever, so I will probably spend a day just making sure all my pins are hitting where they're supposed to be hitting. I've made a sight tape, so today I'm out here testing to see if my sight tape is accurate. I do want to apologize for the preceding audio. I was just using the shotgun mic on my camera. I was a little bit lazy, if I have to be honest. Today I'm using a lavalier mic. Hopefully this improves the audio quality a little bit, and if it does, from now on this will be the way I go about making these videos. So I'm going to test my tape, and one of the first things I'm going to do is test it mark up close. So I'm at 2.5 yards. I'll be aiming at one of the orange dots. So at 2.5 yards, I have to set my sight to 71.1 yards. So let's see if that is on. I'd say so. That is on the dot. Right now I am at 7.5 yards, so this is telling me to set my sight for 25.1 yards. I'll aim at one of the orange spots on there again. And if this mark is on, I'm gonna say it's good, and I'll go to some longer distances. I was holding way too long on that shot. So it broke a little low, it hit a little low, but it's still on the orange dot. I'm gonna aim at another spot at the 7.5 yard distance and see if I just break a better shot, if it's closer to the middle. There we go. So having just tested two of them, but two of the close marks being on, I'm going to press the I believe button. In a hunting situation, you're never going to get in where you actually need to dial this close, because your margin of error on an animal is bigger. So I'm at 7.5 yards now. I'm just going to use my 20-yard pin and put it on the 7.5. Well, put it on the bottom orange dot, just to show you, if you were in a situation where you were actually hunting, your target is a heart or lungs or whatever. So if you're within 20 yards, you're probably fine to just use your 20-yard pin. So I'm going to use my 20-yard pin on that bottom orange dot, just to see how far it misses. I mean, obviously, when you're shooting a target competition, 3D, whatever, you want to be precise. In a hunting situation, I think you're probably going to be close enough. So that was my 20-yard pin on top of that dot at 7.5 yards. So it obviously hit about an inch and a half low. On an animal, if you're trying to take a deer, an inch and a half does not matter. You'll be fine. So this is not something you have to worry about. The close marks really isn't something you need to care about in a hunting situation. This is more for competition, for 3D, where you have targets from 2 yards out to 110, depending on what you're shooting. So now I'm at about 22.5 yards. I'm gonna shoot at one of the yellow feeder faces, and gradually as I shoot, I'll just step back from there. There's a cock squid. So that was my fault. That was a terrible shot. Definitely pulled a shot to the right and low. I'm going to shoot on that same target and just try to make a better shot. A little bit better. Starting to get a little bit breezy. It's harder to hold still, but my height seems good. This is where punching the button would be so much easier. Okay, so now I'm just walking back to random distances. I will range it and then set my sight accordingly. Hopefully you don't hear the buzz of the drone too much. I'm just trying to make this less boring to watch. So 45 yards exactly. That was definitely left as the shot broke, and I think I may have missed the target. Nope, it's on the left hand side of the target. There's definitely me pulling it like that. That definitely felt like it broke left, but the height seems decent. Yep, that felt good. Let's see where that hit. I think I may have caught the 10 ring, so slightly low, but whatever. At 45 yards, this is a target you usually shoot at 20, so I'll take that. I'll shoot at the same target. Maybe we kill an arrow. That was a little low, I think. That shot broke way better. Good height, maybe got a 10 ring. So I'll call that good for a 45-yard mark and continue to step it back. Okay, so I'm still here at 85 yards. Just double checking if my sight setting's good. There is a little bit of a breeze going on and off. So it's not perfectly calm conditions. Slightly to the right and low. So today I'm fighting the release a little bit, struggling to get it to break. So I must be that my release hand might be a little bit too tense. That felt better. Slightly though. The arrow did impact my finger slightly, the veins. So again, that is my fatal flaw, it seems, when it comes to shooting a bow, is my meat paws, my index finger just right up too much. Better. There we go. Kind of figuring out the tension in my release hand. The arrows go where they need to go. So according to my rangefinder, I'm now at 104.5 yards. So I'm going to dial for that. And at this point, if I keep them in the yellow, I'm pretty happy with that, because I'm not shooting the greatest today, and it is a little bit breezy. So if I can just keep them in the yellow, I'm pretty happy with this sight mark. Oh, that felt a little bit low right, and it also contacted my finger. So that arrow impacted where I thought it was going to impact. That was all me. That's not the tape, that's not the bow. But I still blame Biden. That felt a little bit low, but it felt okay-ish. Yeah, that hit in the middle. So, all good. Let's just see if I can put another one in there. That was a weak shot. I would be surprised if that went in the yellow, but it did. Huh. I was definitely shaky a little bit towards the end there. Oh, that was to the right. It's kind of interesting when you practice at longer distance. Every little movement every mistake is amplified. It's kind of why I like doing it. It's sometimes a little bit frustrating, but also when you make some good hits, it's very, very satisfying. Felt okay. Not the steadiest of shots, but it broke good. I think that hit the 10. I'll go down there and look. But at this point, I'm pretty happy with my sight tape. From 2.5 yards all the way to 104.5, it hits. I cannot really ask for more than that. The way this bow shoots, the sight tape being as on as it is, I'm probably gonna go shoot a pig soon.